What's going on, guys? So Conor McGregor now in front of the world at the latest BKFC event is facing himself off with Jeremy Stephens, the most recent BKFC title holder, and making a fight.
Fuck is this, baby? Yes. Yeah, let's make a date. Let's set a date. Who's going to stop me man to man? No one's going to stop me. David, make the date. Let's do it. I'm down for the pro, yeah? I'm down for the pro.
Let's go. Let's fucking do it. Hey, bleed, baby. Just bleed.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Jeremy Little.
Wanting a date in front of the world, telling David Feldman, the other co-owner of the BKFC, make that fight with Jeremy Stephens. Where is this dude's head at? Now, the obvious answer is, Corey is in a bag of cocaine, bro. And we're going to talk about that. Jeremy Stephens actually refers to him as Cocaine Conor.
That Conor fight, Dave Feldman comes back here, says Conor comes up to him, says, I want that Jeremy Stephens fight next. So what are your thoughts there? You fighting the Irishman?
Oh, Cocaine Conor.
Which I thought was pretty funny. Let me try to bring you up to speed so far. Everything Conor's had going on, the rape allegations, the being found liable for rape, all of his sponsors, including Proper 12 brand, which he helped to build, dropped him, okay? Now, he's bought part ownership in BKFC. From what I understand, he owns a very large share, something like half. Okay, so he's almost 50% owner of BKFC. So fair enough, him showing up to the events, using his name and his name value to help promote BKFC. That in turn helps the BKFC make more money, which in turn helps Conor make more money. That's good business sense, okay? Got to give him that. But he is going and putting himself in a place where he cannot deliver. And I think the fans are privy to it. Everybody knows at this point that he cannot fight right now, being that he is in an exclusive contract with the UFC, has 2 fights left. If he has a sunset clause, which we don't know if he does, I'm thinking he probably does, being a huge star like he is, that's probably not going to take effect until later this year, earlier next year. So you're looking at least a year from now until Conor could potentially be a free agent. Now, make no mistake, he could make way more money as a free agent fighting lesser competition. We've already established that. He could go over and fight these killers in the UFC and get paid a percentage of whatever his contract states that he will make, or he could fight in the BKFC where he not only makes a huge purse, but he's 50% owner. So whatever kind of ticket sales and pay-per-view sales and merchandising and everything else under the sun that BKFC does on that event that he fights in, he also gets a kickback off of that. So it's just basic mathematics that tells us that he would make more money in BKFC. But I am here to say there must be, or soon will be, a major falling out between Conor McGregor and Dana White. I don't think Dana White is at all pleased with the fact that Conor McGregor is way more heavily promoting BKFC than UFC. Now listen, I get it. BKFC, UFC, completely different sports, so they're not necessarily in direct competition. Plus, UFC is an industry leader. They are a industry giant in fight sports, even though the BKFC is gaining some notoriety with Conor's help. There's still a big disparity there, okay? But Conor's absolutely been promoting the BKFC way more than he has the UFC, and I think that is pissing Dana off, all right? Not only that, behind his back, Conor McGregor has already tried to strong-arm Dana White and the UFC into promoting or co-promoting this Logan Paul-Conor McGregor boxing match, to which the UFC said nope. So obviously, if they're not going to co-promote something like that, there's no way on God's green earth that they're going to co-promote something with BKFC, who is not even under the same TKO banner like WWE guy Logan Paul, UFC guy Conor McGregor are both under the same TKO banner. BKFC's under a completely different banner. If they're not doing the Logan Paul Conor McGregor fight, definitely not going to promote some fight between Jeremy Stephens and Conor McGregor. What makes it more funny is how Life gives you back what you put into it. There's a lot of irony here, okay? Because Jeremy Stephens beat Eddie Alvarez for the BKFC belt. Conor McGregor was the one who took the belt from Eddie Alvarez years ago in the lightweight division of the UFC to be the first fighter to gain double champ status. During that same press conference when, Conor, Jeremy Stephens, Eddie Alvarez were all on that same stage together, and the reporter asked something to the effect of, there's a lot of tough guys and grizzled veterans up here on this stage. Who do you think would give you this biggest challenge? Jeremy Stephens was the only one that spoke up. Me? I can take you. I'm the hardest puncher in the featherweight division. Conor McGregor, who the fuck is this guy? One of his most famous one-liners in history, that was Jeremy Stephens. Well, Jeremy Stephens just won the BKFC belt last night, and Conor McGregor faced off with him. Oh, how things have changed.
What do you make of his performance? Phenomenal. All the way through, he has been great. He riled up the crowds, came in, got Eddie emotional. It's worked in the past. Eddie's a true warrior, as tough as it comes. Seasoned veteran, accomplished fighter. And Jeremy whacked him out of there, so that was amazing. Very good, That's it. Every fight off the charts, no surprise.
From who the fuck is this guy to Conor McGregor very humbly facing off with that same guy, Jeremy Stephens, hoping to get a date, to get a fight with him. Bet he knows his name now. No, listen, obviously Jeremy wants that fight. Conor McGregor has a massive name. Jeremy just won this belt. He has not made anywhere even close to the amount of money in his fight career as someone like Conor McGregor. So to get that sort of name under his belt, he knows what kind of bag he's looking at. He knows what kind of numbers he's looking at. And he's been through a lot. He talks about it. I'll cut out quite a bit of this interview where Jeremy Stephens actually comes to tears discussing what he's been through in his life and what kind of personal challenges, familial and otherwise, that he's had to overcome to get to where he is, and still has not been financially successful as plenty of these other fighters out here. So obviously he wants that fight. He talks about it a little bit right here.
And I think everybody kind of wants to know, who's your dream opponent?
Butt Cheeks McGregor. That's the one. That's the money fight, bro.
Butt Cheeks McGregor. That was pretty good. I like that despite Conor McGregor being part owner, he's referring to him as Cocaine Conor and Butt Cheeks McGregor. I'm sure you guys picked up on this, but that is undoubtedly a reference to the Roadhouse movie where Conor McGregor clearly showed his ass cheeks. What is the end game here? You already know he's under exclusive contract with the UFC. He's not going to be able to take that fight until that contract is over with. I think Conor McGregor could potentially be in financial trouble. I know people say, oh, what are you talking about, bro? He's made $500 million in his career or more. How could he be out of money? Lamborghini yachts are not cheap to maintain. Listen, you would be shocked. Mike Tyson back in his heyday was one of the most highest earning boxers ever in history. And 3 years after he was named that, the guy was flat broke. Okay? So you're looking at Conor McGregor, you're looking at the lifestyle he's living, you're looking at the way he's spending money versus how much money he's earning. And his earnings are doing this and have been doing this for quite a while. He's trying to get that back. All right, and I want to say too, if you enjoy this, please subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate it. I work really hard. All I ask is that you subscribe to the channel. That's it. If you want to drop a cash donation down there, there's a thanks button that looks like this. You can say, here you go, bro. I appreciate your take on this. Here's $3, here's $4, here's $5, whatever. I would appreciate that. But all I do ask is that you subscribe to the channel, hit that noti bell so that you'll know when I drop a video, and that's it. What is happening here? Is this just something that he's planting the seed so that later on in the future he can get that fight? Because I'm telling you now, that fight cannot legally happen until he is out of his UFC contract, right? So are these just the ramblings of a madman? Are these just the ramblings of a coked up Conor McGregor. I saw several videos where people were saying it drunk Conor McGregor. No, no. He didn't seem drunk to me. He didn't seem drunk to me when he faced off with Jeremy Stevens. Definitely seemed coked up. I think he's always coked up. I think he stays coked up this day and age. And him fighting anyone concerns me, to be honest with you. But I've been singing this tune since the beginning. I think that Conor McGregor is in a situation where he wants to face lower level competition, meaning not a guy in the UFC who can leg kick him. He wants to do a boxing match or BKFC where the guys are lower level. These are ex-UFC guys that the UFC didn't want anymore because they weren't quite as talented or a little older or damaged goods or whatever the case is, right? He is realizing now, after looking at this lay of the land with this influencer boxing and all of these other sideshow events that are starting to happen, kind of a sport and entertainment hybrid event in and of itself, this influencer boxing, these influencer fights. He's trying to be a part of that. He has said, I want to be a part of that because it's astronomical money. And he didn't say this part, but you can only assume you're also fighting lesser competition. You also have this much of a chance of getting your leg broken in half like he did in his last fight in the UFC against Poirier. But what do you guys think is going on here? I mean, he obviously can't take this fight with Jeremy Stevens until his contract is over with. Is he just trying to set up something for the future? Do you think he ever will fight in the UFC again? Because to me, right now, it looks like time is going to run out on his contract before he ever gets back in there. I'm not sure that he will ever get back in there. And although they've not been bad-mouthing one another in public, Conor said something in an interview with the Schmo the other day about, oh, all this legal, making plans. That's for pussies.
And, legal, just making claims and all this bollocks, that's for pussies. That's how
What? Couldn't be talking about the UFC, right? Because you're legally under contract with them, right? I mean, that's exactly what he said. There is no one else or nothing else that he could have been referring to there except his contract with the UFC and that he's legally bound to the UFC and that he has to make a plan to fight for the UFC. There's little subtle, but, jabs have been thrown, at least by Conor. Dana's had a couple here and there, Conor makes so much fucking money, he doesn't need to fight.
Conor McGregor, what is the holdup with his return?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the Ultimate Fighter was over back in August, and I can't imagine the plan was for him to be out as long as he's been.
Well, first problem was that he broke that shin bone. He was recovering from that. That was one of the reasons we had it on. The other problem is he's fucking rich.
And how does that present an issue to you with negotiations?
What do you mean?
Well, I'll ask, does Conor McGregor...
Conor McGregor doesn't need money.
So are we at a point here where Conor McGregor may never fight for the UFC? Can you say that?
If you had shitloads of money, would you be sitting here right now asking me this fucking question?
No.
No, you would not. That just answered your question.
Right there. Make no mistake. You see the body language? As soon as he started asking about Conor, he started fucking with his collar. I mean, listen, that video is not recent. You've got another year of this added on top of this irritation right here that Dana White shows. So you can only imagine. He's pissed. Conor is pissed. Do you think that Dana's irritation right there was solely directed at that reporter for asking that question? Or do you think he's thinking in the back of his head, fucking no, we can't get this guy to fight. We can't come to an agreement. Apparently he doesn't need to fight. He's got so much fucking money. I'm pretty good at reading body language, and you can see that Dana White is clearly, visibly irritated. They're trying everything they can to get Conor to fight, and nothing is working. Nothing is transpiring. So there's little tiny under the surface sort of jabs that have been thrown by each of these guys. They've not come out in public and said anything directly negative about one another, but you can see here that there are little jabs being taken. They know that anything they say and do can and will be heard by the other, right? And it's a benefit for the UFC to try to stay in good standing with Conor, because he has a huge name. He's a huge star. If they want to be in the Conor McGregor business at all, they need to treat him with respect in front of the cameras as well, right? Dana knows this. You don't burn bridges and throw jabs publicly at people who have the potential to make you millions of dollars. It's just the way it goes. That's not good business, right? Same thing with Conor. But Conor, in his drugged up, drug-induced state, his slip is hanging a little bit. And he's starting to take little tiny jabs here and there. And I see the shit literally hitting the fan between Conor McGregor and Dana White at some point soon. I would be very, very shocked to ever see him get in the UFC again. I think he does not want to get in the UFC again for fear that his leg could be re-injured. And listen, you're talking about tissue, muscles, nerves, blood vessels, all of this stuff that when an injury like that happens has to coalesce back together perfectly, or you could be looking at circulation problems, circulation damage. Listen, when that happened to Chris Weidman a couple of years back, I mean, I sat there and watched this guy come to tears and cry on an interview because he was saying that the surgeons and doctors were hoping that the circulation was going to take after this extensive surgery that he had done, because if it didn't, he could potentially have to have his leg amputated. Imagine that. Imagine being told that when you suffered that sort of injury. And make no mistake, Conor McGregor's injury was not much different than what Chris Weidman's was. Basically the same. I think Weidman broke his up a little bit higher. That was it. Other than that, basically the same injury. Right? So Conor definitely is not wanting to fight in the UFC again. I don't know if he sat down and specifically expressed that to Dana. Doesn't seem that he has, because in public and on interviews, Dana is still giving a estimated date that Conor will come back and fight. So I'm just really curious to see what plays out here, because Conor is throwing all kinds of curveballs into the UFC Dana White business. And I'm sure Dana's sitting on the side going, what is this guy doing? But something's going to have to give, because if you don't want to fight in the UFC anymore, and you're not planning to or not going to, you need to have that conversation with Dana so that he stops throwing your name out there as potentially fighting. And it's been pushed back multiple times, right? I mean, something's going to have to give. So I think either a huge falling out between Dana and Conor is inevitable, or we're just going to be looking at sunset clause of Conor McGregor. Because if he gets back into the UFC, I don't see them having him fight. I don't see him accepting a fight with anyone, even as difficult as Michael Chandler. Nope, I don't believe it. Because I think that Conor, at this point, doubts that he could win that match. That's going to devalue him as he goes into free agency after his UFC career. Because, make no mistake, he's not re-signing with the UFC. His name is way too valuable to be locked under a contract with the sort of numbers that he has with the UFC, right? Conor is much more valuable, especially to himself, if he's not under the UFC banner. So, anyway, let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you watching the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you would. That's it. I will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys. All right, peace.